How good does it get, SK?
Why not us, Charlie?
Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
Welcome back to the Smylie Show, where the Florida Swing SK is officially in the books. You're back at home at Alabama.
Feels good. Feels good.
Can imagine so. Aren't you back on the road for Texas those next couple of weeks, or you get a little break? Yeah.
Nope. I got 3 more in this 7-week stretch. Florida was fairly epic, though. You know.
Oh my goodness.
The signature event, Bay Hill players were awesome, but then Cognizant and Valspar were great. They were awesome.
Ton of excitement. That is one of the themes of today's show, talking about the way all those tournaments finished, and not a great place to be this season. Smylie is a 54-hole leader. We got to talk about that. We got to break down Matt Fitzpatrick bouncing back the week after a tough players loss to win this event. But here's the place we have to start. I can't go any further in the show without discussing this, which were a series of tweets on Saturday night from Kevin Kisner. The first one says, the best part of my TV career was watching Smylie Kaufman get carded tonight, and then follows up with, and now he tells me he has never heard of Eric Clapton. So, SK, here's your chance to respond, fill in details, give us a little color on what it's like hanging out with Kevin Kisner late on a Saturday night.
I said Eric Compton? Like the golfer?
Yeah.
He said, no, Eric Clapton. I was like, It's like Lola?
Layla.
No, I said Lola. And they weren't getting it either, just like you aren't getting it now. But that's also a song by somebody that I don't know the name of the artist, but similar to Layla, but it's Lola.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know Lola.
Really?
I know Layla.
All right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta look that up. Lola.
Or we could just have people tell us in the comments which song Smylie's referring to right now. What a mix-up!
Somebody's just yelling at their phone right now. How do you not know that?
Yeah, I do love that you got carded. That's good though. Good to feel young at this age. There's a certain tipping point where getting carded is better than not getting carded. I think we're entering that phase of our lives.
Yes, God, that can't be right. McFly? No. Yeah.
Okay.
McFly.
There we go. We got to the bottom of it. Tomato.
But how did I get carded? So I had eaten at the hotel and then went to go meet Kiz and got to where they were, and there was a dude out front, and he didn't ask for my ID, but I just assumed he was like a bouncer of some sort, so I just handed it to him, and then Kiz just happened to see it all go down. So I leaned into the bit.
There you go. You took the initiative. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's a good piece of additional context there. Was not sure how that went down, but glad the kids got to make content.
And if they took my ID, said it was a fake, I would just ask kids just to pass back. You know.
Now we're talking.
It would work.
It really would have worked. That is good stuff. Well, to continue on sort of a fun trend as it relates to the week itself, how about the happy hour bump continuing? Matt Fitzpatrick joins the desk.
Hold on, but we even go back a week earlier.
That's
Kevin
right.
Kisner to TGL, what they did to make the finals, but he clinched the thing. We're on quite a heater right now with that, which I'm trying to remember who I had at Bay Hill. Got her up at Bridgman, playing pretty good. Technically might have gotten them a little after their wins, but still who cares?
It's a two-way sort of street here, right? Got her up 2-time winner on tour this year. Jacob Bridgman still currently your leader of the FedEx Cup points list.
That's right.
Good place to be is sitting next to Smylie on happy hour.
And Gerard Cognizant week, but I think he might be on his 14th putter since the show. There's nothing, and we don't judge. We don't judge. There's a great video out for he's got a new driver in the bag, and he's like hitting it great, and it's on social, and he goes over to the fitter. He says, "You know any hard games?" I love Gerard so much. He's fantastic. As it relates to Fitz, the happy hour appearance was actually the second time in the past week that you've talked to him on your air. The first was after making bogey the 72nd hole at TPC Sawgrass, tough loss to Cam Young at the Players, and you're about to interview him, and he taps his wrist. He says, Valspar starts Thursday. So I know that it's not surprising at all, like just what we know about Matt Fitzpatrick as a competitor, but in those series of conversations with him,
What just stood out to you about the headspace he was in? You know, a lot of guys, that's a tough loss to take, takes time to recover. Feels like he was already ready just to keep it moving, and no better evidence than what he did this week at Innisbrook.
Well, you kind of see either one of the two things happen after a week like that. You either see a player compete and have a chance to win and do what Matt Fitzpatrick did, or they come out Thursday so flat. They're 4 over through 9 holes. They're like, why did I play this week? And luckily enough for Fitzy, that wasn't the case. This guy really played Copperhead the proper way. And it was a golf course that fit his game. It's a place that you got to be super accurate. It's a lot of dog legs, firm golf courses. And he played fabulous. And I'm not surprised at all. And I really need to start reevaluating my one and done picks because
we talked about him.
It's just stupid, man. I said, like, there's no way I don't use him. I've done that so many times this year. I just overthink one and dones where Fitzy was always the answer this week. And like the whole week, everybody's like, who do you think's going to win? I was like, Fitzy's going to win. Stop asking me. Like, it's a no brainer. This guy is going to end up at the top of this leaderboard, especially heading to the weekend. I was like, there's just not enough. There wasn't enough of a lead on Fitzy at this point for me to think that he wasn't going to win this golf tournament. And it was wild. It really was an interesting tournament because that Sunday felt like was a single digit under par going to win this golf course today? Because that's kind of how it felt there for a while.
Yeah, and we can. I want to unpack the day, in depth. I think the place that I think is interesting to start is talking about what Mark Blackburn said recently on our show about the work he's done with Matt Fitzpatrick and what that's translating to right now in terms of his play. And Fitz talked about that in his winner's press conference. There's a quote in here where he said, "There's a big difference in my approach play. My irons are just so much better, just better control, better distance control, better accuracy left to right, hitting the shape I want to hit. I've always felt like the short game's been good enough. I felt like the driving's always been good enough, and the putting's been good enough. So approach play always felt like it was the missing link. Last week at the Players, he was second in strokes gained tee to green. This week at Valspar, he was first in strokes gained tee to green. You were with that group on Sunday at the Players, watching him hit that bullet cut off the tee all day long to near perfection. And then, that tee shot at 18 Sunday at Valspar, I think the apex was 57 feet, sets up the approach shot to make birdie to win the tournament. What's standing out to you right now with his golf swing, particularly in the context of what Mark joined us on the show to discuss?
Well, his golf swing is dialed. He's able to move it both ways, bring the flight, whether it be up or down. But I love with his iron game the fact that he can fade stuff to right pins and he could turn stuff to left pins. And I think that's and it's not like big draws or big fades. It just falls one way or another. And it's the proper shot time after time. Hardly see big mishits from him. For the most part, it feels like he's always hitting the back of the ball. But outside of his golf swing, though, Charlie, like I love that he's got that low driver that he can hit. He talked about it with me on Happy Hour, but just from watching Fitzy over the last 2 weeks, what really stands out to me is that pressure just doesn't seem to affect him. And I think at the Players Championship, I felt that way. I've seen him play at the Ryder Cup. It just feels like when the situation gets heightened, he seems to slow down and feel like he's going to hit the shot that he needs to at that time. And not many people have that. I think he's one of 10 guys probably on tour that you put on a short list of guys that really feels that he just doesn't look like he gets nervous, man. And it's a rare quality to have.
And we can get into, I don't know if you want to talk about course next, 54-hole leads next. The place that I have on our notes is guys obviously in good form right now, some tough golf courses, looking ahead a few weeks to the Masters, has some stats on his Masters. He's made 11 starts to the Masters. Only missed cut has been once, 2014 when he was an amateur. His best finish was tied for 7th in 2016. He's got 3 top 20s and 2 top 10s, but no top 5s. So it's an interesting, he's not played poorly there. He's made the cut a lot of times, but it's not like he has this glittering resume at Augusta National. But clearly with the form he's in right now, is this guy kind of trending on your list of this could be a place where he could pick off his second major?
I think he's got to putt better.
Yeah.
I think he really does have to take a little bit more advantage of the putter. He was lucky to win yesterday. It's 2 Sundays in a row where he's kind of durfed up the par fives. He's had great opportunities to make easy birdies and has walked away with pars both times. That was at the 9th hole and the 11th hole at the Players Championship, and then yesterday it was at the he 3-putted the 5th hole, didn't birdie the first after hitting the fairway. So I thought it was going to be his detriment again, is that he had these par fives that he just played sloppy on. I think you can maybe point to a couple different factors with what happened today. We'll get into with Fitzy on maybe like what got him out of rhythm. But as we think about Augusta, the added distance is great. Think about that low ball flight, keeping the ball in the fairway. But Brandel put out a really interesting tweet the other day talking about Augusta National, looking at data and statistics and what is the most important things to look at when evaluating players heading into Augusta. And they haven't necessarily had a huge database to go through, but you can really look at Data Golf and see that I think 2021 is where you can start to see statistics pop up to where you can start to really analyze, okay, what are the most important things at Augusta, and weather plays a factor. But I thought it was interesting that approach play was, I believe, the first one. I'm going to pull it up just so I can get all 5 of these in order, because I would have never put these in order. It was approach play, around the greens, putting, driving distance, then driving accuracy. Now, the driving accuracy thing, I can understand being last. Driving distance being 4th, that was surprising to me. I think we always start with, oh, you got to hit it long to win at Augusta. I mean, based off the data that Brandel was able to compile, that approach play, and I can get that with the big slopey greens, small areas where they put some of these hole locations, why that can be very, very important. So not surprised to see that first. But the around the green and putting being before driving distance just reconfirms why that place is so good for Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I think just sitting in some of those press conferences last year, hearing a lot of guys talk about how they view it as a second shot golf course, and to your point on just gathering knowledge about how to play that place over the years, knowing where they're going to put certain hole locations, where you can hit it and where you can't hit it, all that stuff would seem to add up as to why a guy who, I mean, if you hit it further, of course, you have less club in your hand, you can be a little more aggressive with the line you're taking, but still there are places that are impossible, to end up at that course. And I think it's why it's such a wonderful test. So it'll be quite interesting to see who emerges there this week. And there are a few live guys we're going to need to discuss later in the show. We're playing very good right now who could be in the mix. But to get back to Sunday at Valspar, Matt's playing partner was Adrian Dumonte-Chassart, and your colleague on NBC, John Wood, was asked about some pace issues happening during the round. And he said, being Matt Fitzpatrick, he's a little perturbed with his playing partner's pace of play. It is glacial to be kind. And so the series of events that were happening at that time were Fitz hit his approach into the 11th green first, despite being closer. He walked up to the green and waited a few minutes before Adrian Dumonte-Chassart hit his approach shot, then went to speak to an official about the issue. The tour issued ADDC a warning after timing him unofficially, but did not penalize him. And when asked about after the round, Fitzpatrick said, when you're not ready to play a golf shot, it gets frustrating after a while. Do you hear my dog howling downstairs?
Holy moly.
Yeah, that's a new thing that that's our lab Maxwell, and he's just in the last 6 months started to howl when fire engines pass by. So it's like it's new. It's his new thing. He does it in the middle of the night. Wakes up the children. It's fantastic. So thanks for joining the show, Maxwell. Please stop howling. Usually it's about 4 or 5 howls, and then, well, there's a 6th howl. Okay. All right. The howling's done. I don't know how much that's going to make into the show. Maybe none of it, maybe all of it. Fitzpatrick was asked about it after the round, and he said, when you're not ready to play a golf shot, it gets frustrating after a while, particularly when you're playing well yourself or you're in contention or whatever it is. It definitely knocks you out of your rhythm. I was kind of chasing my tail because I'm trying to speed up and get back in position. And at the same time, you're obviously trying to win a golf tournament. Mm-hmm. So here's in thinking about this, I'm really curious to hear your opinion, having played on tour, knowing how pace affects play, whether this is, I don't necessarily think this is an Adrian Dumonte-Chassart problem in full. I feel like part of this is if the tour was enforcing a 40-second, that's the amount of time you're supposed to play a shot. Like to hear that Matt Fitzpatrick hits a shot out of play, walks up, waits 3 minutes, and still is waiting for that shot to be played. If you're not going to penalize that, nothing's ever going to change. So what are your thoughts on this, and how does a tour address it?
Sometimes you get over a golf shot and the wind starts switching all over the place. And I think most players are okay with guys taking that extra time to really figure out, okay, this is where the wind is. As long as you're having that conversation with your caddy throughout, I think most players are fine. What drove me insane, and what drives a guy like Matt Fitzpatrick insane, is that when Fitzy plays it, and now you're just starting to get your numbers, that's the annoying part. It's being ready to play when it's your time. I think when you're always starting your process, whether it's when you just get to the tee and you've had plenty of time to get the numbers and start the conversation going, and everything just takes an extra couple seconds, it just drives you insane by the end of the day. But this didn't just start on the 11th hole. This started at the first hole. And I got to give you the story behind what happened in number one. So Fitzy tees off first. They announce Matt Fitzpatrick, big applause, strikes it down the middle of the fairway. And then they announced Adrian de Chissart, and there was no applause. It was the oddest thing in the world. Like, we were teeing off this group, and I look over at Steve, and I was like, we have like a mute button. I was like, nobody clapped. And he's like, I don't know. And our producer's like, we should probably say something. I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then he just hits a high out of bounds.
Yeah.
And, we couldn't really tell where the ball had finished, but all I said was like, man, I don't know if he was just a little spooked by the lack of applause from the difference between Fitzy and him, but clearly made a poor swing, and then hits the next one in the trees and plays out to the fairway. But Fitzy hits a iron shot into the left bunker. And like initially I already started to think, man, like Fitzy got off to this great start, and I feel like he's already being taken out of rhythm with another provisional ball. It took a while for him to pitch out of the trees. And so my brain was already thinking about this. So when this came up on the 11th hole, it wasn't surprising at all to me.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, is Adrian had a tough day. He also made triple on 2 par 5s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And just,
1 in 11.
And so I think it's interesting to I think the point you're making, you've heard Patrick Cantlay can be a lightning rod for a lot of people in terms of pace of play. But I've heard tour pros or others talk about how even though his actual routine over the ball is deliberate, and that's what you're seeing on television, of course, they're cutting to him as he's about to hit a shot. Yeah. He does all of his work prior to the shot, like in sync with, okay, so once I'm over the ball, I mean, once my playing partner plays his shot, I'm over the ball, and now you're seeing me take a bunch of time, but I've actually done my work in advance. I think that's harder for a viewing audience to grasp because they don't see necessarily all the conversations, because there's no reason to show that on television. But there are, repeat offenders of that vein. Oof. That just it makes it tough, right?
Sunday is tough, man. But the tour's doing a better job of individually timing when, like, a player like Fitzy goes up to a rules official and say, "Hey, we're a hole and a half behind, and you better not look at me. It's that guy." I've done that before. I've been like, man, because a lot of times the rules official will meet you about 60 yards off the tee, and a lot of times you'll initially say to if they say, hey, we have to time you, or you're being warned, I'll be like, a lot of times you'll tell them what happened, or most times it'll be like, hey guys, I know you guys had some rulings back there, just try to do your best to try to get back into position. Everybody kind of gets moving, and I think what people don't understand is how fast tour players walk. You want I think most people would be shocked at how quick a tour player walks. Out of 10 on a treadmill, they're at about 8.4. I'm telling you, guys are flying walking down the fairway. Because when I am having conversations walking with players, I have to double my pace of what I typically am walking, because I'm normally out in front, just kind of chill walking. But if you have to walk and keep pace with a tour player, they are humming, man. And so you got to give these guys credit that they are moving very quick to try to keep their pace going. But I think that's something a lot of people don't know about tour players.
That's a did we do a power ranking on speedwalkers at one point? We did there was something we did on the show of that vein. I want to go track that down and figure that out, like fastest walkers to the ball.
Yeah, I mean Max would be up there, and he could walk with like an orange on his head balance. His head doesn't move when he walks.
So then what happens, Smylie, if the tour is not willing to? Because I guess the place it feels like we are is, because this is there's heavy player influence in the rules and regulations that determine the competitions on this tour. There's obviously, you're hesitant to penalize guys unless you absolutely have to. But it feels like there's a growing contingent of players who are saying, wait a second, if I'm being impacted, like if Matt Fitzpatrick ends up losing this golf tournament and he feels like one of the key factors was another player impacting his pace, when do the scales tip where it's like, yes, please penalize guys, like make this thing change somehow, even if that's detrimental to some players?
Yeah, the tour's got to step in a little bit, right? Because if the players aren't going to respect one another with their pace and respect just keeping in position, and a lot of times Sunday players will slow down too because it's more important, and guys will take a little bit more time than they typically would because every shot matters coming down the stretch on a Sunday. Well, it matters all week, but really feels like it matters on a Sunday. It is the responsibility of the tour to go in there and time guys more and not be afraid to assess a penalty. And at some point, somebody's going to get one, whoever the repeat offenders are. I don't know how slow ADDC typically is. Maybe this was just a one-off and that he just got into some very awkward positions. But based on what I heard is that he just needs to quicken his routine as far as being ready to play.
By the way, dogs are active downstairs. I don't know how much of this you're hearing.
We're hearing it.
I am more than happy to go address those dogs at some point and or move them into a different room. But it's just maybe someone's like down there burglarizing my house. We'll find out after the show ends up recording. Let's move now let's talk about the course itself. Copperhead at Innisbrook. There's a post that Justin Thomas had on X just talking about the difficulty of the week. He's playing 7,400 yards, par 71. 4 par 5s. The cut was over par. 11 under was the winning score. And he says Innisbrook always holds its own. And so just want to get your notes on this test, but also looking at the Florida swing in full and just the bookends. So at the Valspar this year, the cut was 1 over. Winner was 11 under, and there were 40 in ties that finished under par. And if you go back to the Cognizant, the cut was even. 17 under was the winner. There are 59 players under par. I just find it interesting that these two are, for years we talked about how much harder PGA National was, why guys didn't want to go there. I know there are other factors with the schedule, but we're at a place now where Innisbrook both plays harder and gets a better field. And I just, thoughts on it's a challenging swing, but looking at the way those things have kind of moved apart in the past few years.
Well, let's just start with Copperhead and the statistics behind this golf course and what players typically hit as far as greens and regulation on the PGA Tour and fairways. On the year, players are averaging hitting 67% of their greens leading into Copperhead. Heading into the final round on Sunday, the greens and regulation average for the field was 55%, so down 12%. And then PGA Tour average for fairways on the 2026 season was right at 59%. And on the week, the field average was 53%, so down 6%. So it's not a long golf course. I think it measures out to 72 or so 100 yards, but probably played closer to 71, 70, 50 on the week. So not a long golf course by any stretch of the imagination. Scoring average on the week for a par 71 was 71.4. So playing a little bit, almost a half shot over par, which is awesome. And you look at it, the unusual part of the golf course, right? There's 5 par 3s. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a very unique thing that you typically don't see on the PGA Tour, along with 4 par 5s. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when you get 4 par 5s, golf courses just get annihilated on the PGA Tour because there's often par 4s that are just easy birdies, or short par 3s, or par 3s that don't have any advanced skill to the shots. Mm-hmm. But all the par 3s here are challenging. Only 2 par 4s this week played under par. Just 2.
Wow.
The par 5s all played under par, which is not surprising in the least bit. But then you throw in just how they were able to move some tees around to even the 9th hole. The 9th hole used to be, a medium-sized par 4. It kind of goes up the hill. It's a green that plays about 8 yards up the hill in the second shot, but they moved it back on the 11th tee box, which is, I would probably say, where the white tee boxes are on the par 5 11th, giving another 30 yards. And all of a sudden, now this hole was the hardest hole this week. It was playing, it was the hardest hole and playing quarter of a shot over par. So when I just think about the golf course, what is the challenge of it, right? It's clearly a little bit more difficult to hit the fairways, old school in nature with angles, firm fairways, a bit like the Sony Open. When you think about sometimes some dog legs that have some run out to them, like the Snake Pit, the 16th hole. That's a great example of like what a Sony Open tee shot feels like. But now you have a forced carry on the right that you have to deal with. So you're landing a golf ball in a driveway with a pond in front. So you got to shape something to make the fairway bigger, or you have to challenge the right side and take on the risk of having to drop at the beginning of the pond, which we saw many players hit in. But I think Copperhead and just the work that Tracy West, the director at Valspar Championship, getting a great crowd, all of the fan experience is as good as I've seen on the PGA Tour for what is not a signature event. It's the perfect model for PGA Tour events that aren't in the signature event model. You need somebody like her that is willing to go all in. There were multiple things on the property with whether it be food, sitting areas, things that you could do simulator wise, great seating, hospitality, but also there was a grilled cheese truck off the 14th hole that was just handing out free grilled cheeses. And I couldn't tell you how happy I was yesterday getting a toasted grilled cheese. So I was
wasn't it like it's just a standard grilled cheese? Have any little honey in it? Like,
no,
what they kind of do with it?
It was just, little toasted bread with some, obviously some grilled cheese. And it was a little small thing, but they had just a little block of cheese underneath it. I think it was maybe a cheese sponsor, if you will. And they were handed out blocks of cheese if you want to just walk around with a block of cheese that you wanted to put in your fridge later. I personally didn't want to carry the big block of cheese, but I did think it would have been a great bit if I was carrying this big block of cheese.
Yeah, I think we have Jackson chiming in here. Yeah, Jackson, I did just say honey on a grilled cheese. Try it. It's unbelievable.
What about honey on a PB&J?
I sometimes, I'm not even necessarily a jelly guy. Uncrustables makes a peanut butter and honey sandwich that's unbelievable.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, honey on a grilled cheese, it's underrated. It's a little underrated. Just a little bit of honey.
Okay.
Yeah, try it sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, just wanted to say that the Valspar Championship, they got a great field. The weather was phenomenal. But they also had a Saturday night concert. The crowds on Saturday were phenomenal. And really all week they were great. Sunday, I felt like there was the lowest day of the week. But I imagine, everybody was out there all week and a lot of basketball on, but still, it was still a really good Sunday crowd. It just wasn't as good as Thursday to Saturday, which it's good to see great crowds on a Thursday.
Right.
A lot of times people are just like, oh yeah, we'll come out Saturday. It was really well done. Congrats to Valspar on a great week.
I was watching Golf Channel earlier in the week. They had Rondé Barber on. He was singing Tracy West's praise a number of different times. Just like she works so hard to get this field, to get this thing built out. It seems like a really, really cool. And to your point too, and there were some reports out this week. Money and Sport did one analyzing just the existing set of events on the PGA Tour and their financials, and seeing what the future of the tour could look like. And so there are only about 7 events that currently look like they could be sustainable under the expanded signature event model. So you wonder what's going to happen to the rest of these events. But when you have one like Valspar that's well run, you don't know if it ends up on track 1 or track 2, but those are going to be a part of the tour's backbone, and whatever that looks like under the new sort of format.
I certainly hope they get it. They've definitely passed in flying colors to me. I felt like Cognizant didn't have near the investment as Valspar did into the to the fan experience on site. The build out wasn't quite the same as what we're accustomed to at Cognizant. So that would be, if you're having to decide between the two.
Right.
I love PGA National. I love that event. I love the venue. But if we're trying to take what looks good on TV from a, just from watching the golf course and the drama come in on the stretch, well, I think it needs to be matched with also people there and also got to look good from above on those drone shots, man. When it's nice and green grass showing everywhere, that's a good thing, but also like kind of need some people sitting on those green grass too.
It sounds like Saturday night, nice place to be, would have been the concert there at Valspar. Where it's not been a great place to be on Saturday night is sleeping in a bed with a lead on the PGA Tour, because if you're looking at the 2026 season, only 3 of the 11 54-hole leaders have converted. Justin Rose at the Farmers, Jacob Bridgman at the Genesis Invitational, and Ricky Castillo in Puerto Rico. And so, there are a number of different ways we can break this down. I can run through the schedule for you here with each guy, what their lead was and who the eventual winner was in the margin. And then maybe talk a little bit about particularly the Florida swing, because we saw really at PGA National, Bay Hill, and Sawgrass. It was the final 9 holes are really started to shift for that 54-hole leader, and things, got tough, of course, as it does on the Florida swing. But watching some of those guys, lose a handle in the golf tournament, it was wild. So starting with Davis Riley at Sony, 2-shot lead, and then Chris Gotterup ends up winning that event by 2. Then at the Amex, Siwoo Kim opens with a 1-shot lead. Scotty Scheffler wins by 4. Then, of course, the Farmers, Justin Rose starts with a 6-shot lead, ends with a 7-shot lead. At the Waste Management, Hideki Matsuyama opens with a 1-shot lead. Chris Gotterup wins in a playoff. At the AT&T, Akshay Bhatia starts the day with a 2-shot lead. Colin Morikawa wins by 1 shot. At the Genesis, Jacob Bridgman starts the day with a 6-shot lead, but ends up only winning by 1. At the Cognizant, Shane Lowry and Austin Smotherman start the day as co-leaders. Nico Echeverria ends up winning that tournament by 2. At the Arnold Palmer Invitational, Daniel Berger starts the day with a 1-shot lead, ends up losing to Akshay Bhatia in a playoff. Then in Puerto Rico, Ricky Castillo starts with a 1-shot lead, ends with a 1-shot lead. At the Players, Ludwig Oberg begins the day with a 3-shot lead. Cameron Young wins by a shot. And then, of course, this last week at the Valspar, Sungjae Im starts Sunday with a 2-shot lead. Matt Fitzpatrick wins the tournament by 1. So we know sleeping on a lead is hard, Smylie. It's often better to be the chaser than the chase. But what sort of conclusions are you drawing from this theme that we've started the year with?
Well, I would say that Daniel Berger and probably played the best of any 54-hole leader, just had somebody play better than him, and sometimes that happens on a Sunday. I think you could also I wouldn't quite group Akshay Bhatia in that next. He would probably be the next one down, where he didn't necessarily play bad on Sunday. I just think that Pebble is a place this time of the year you got to probably feel like he had to go out and shoot 4, 5, 6 under to win on a Sunday regardless. And he didn't necessarily play poorly, just other guys just passed him up on the leaderboard. But it's tough, man. When you're sleeping on the lead every single night, and you'll listen to the interview this week we have with Akshay Bhatia coming out. Also, Brett McCabe, who's the sports psychologist of Cam Young. I asked Akshay about this similar topic, which is how hard is it? I've been in the lead, and all you're thinking about when you go to bed is winning the golf tournament, and how much more relaxed you are as being somebody that's chasing. And it all goes into the mental side of the game, and just how you are able to show up, not think about results, and just play one shot at a time. And it's so difficult to do. But when you think about all that's on the line, and being a player's champion, and how cool that would be, and how difficult it is, and how nervous you are, and how difficult it sometimes can be to pull off the shots, especially when you hear a lot of noise out in front of you. And two, you gotta throw in other factors. Like let's throw in that sometimes you're in a final group that has no momentum. Like Michael Thornbjornsson, not giving any good vibes at the beginning of that day. Ludwig wasn't playing bad on the front 9, but I think if he had a guy, stuffing in some shots on the front 9, it would have made him probably play a little bit more aggressively. So sometimes you just don't have any good juju in the group. It shouldn't be the ultimate decider and factor of why you didn't win a golf tournament, but it definitely plays a part.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. A couple of things you talked about there, where Fitzpatrick, this most recent, the Valspar, not great pace of play situation, but ends up getting it done.
Yeah.
To your point, with Ludwig doesn't get it done playing alongside Thorbjornsen. And it just, even within the structure of what we're looking at here, Chris Gotterup comes from behind to win twice. Akshay Bhatia, whatever he takes from AT&T obviously helps 3 weeks later when he wins the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And then even, I know Matt Fitzpatrick was not your 54-hole leader, but to be kind of back and forth with Cameron Young, holding the lead for a little bit, and then ending up, losing the players and coming back the next week and getting it done. A lot of interesting sort of trends and the way guys are processing loss and applying it to what they can do better later in the season.
Well, Cam and Fitzy, they were pushing each other.
Oh, yeah.
The players.
Good vibes in that group. That's what you want, right? Competitive.
Yeah, that's 100%. And I'm not saying that's why guys win or lose, whether they have somebody good playing in their group, because that's not true at all. But it definitely helps.
And also to give Sungjae a little bit of grace too, this week in Innisbrook, is he missed the first 7 events of the year with a wrist injury. He didn't touch a club for a month and a half, which is insane for a guy that's been one of the tour's Ironmen for a number of years. And then in his first 2 starts back, missed a cut at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, missed the cut of Players. And then in holding that third round lead, he said, it's been a while since I've been in the lead like this. I'm sure I'll be nervous, but the best I can do is just play my own game, and gets off to a slow start to start the day. And it's, guys still kind of getting back into form.
He kind of regressed to the mean a little bit with his iron play. He was 9 under through, I think, his first 13 holes or the golf tournament. And if you go back and look at his stats last year, I think when I think of Sungjae Im, you would have thought this guy is a top 20 iron player. You go look at his stats last year, he made the Tour Championship, but he also was the 176th iron player last season, which was a little shocking. Surprising to me. And he was in that top 5. He was first and second before the weekend came around in his approach play. And I was curious to see whether his swing changes were going to hold up. I talked to Josh Gregory, who's back working with Sungjae Im on his short game, but also helping with drills and stuff with his full swing. And Sungjae, such a unique golf swing, right? He's got that slow backswing. It's one that I think you would try to teach to a junior or amateur who whips the club behind him really quick. It's like the opposite of Matt Fitzpatrick, the way Sungjae swings the golf club. But Josh had said that Sungjae sometimes gets lifty, which I think you could see that he kind of gets lifty with his arms, and sometimes the face gets a little bit open. He doesn't have quite as much hand depth. What we mean by that is the club is almost too far out in front of him with an open face, where the misses for him would be out to the right because he's a tilter. Tilting meaning the spine is pointed back to the right a little bit too early in the downswing. So he's trying to feel like his chest is a little bit more rotation, a little bit more downhill with his chest, but also trying to feel like he's not lifting quite as much in the backswing. The face is a little stronger and it's more depth. And so I was curious how that was going to play out on Sunday. I felt if he was able to not hit those spinny right shots early in the round, I thought he was going to really, hang in there. But what we saw was kind of that spinny right shot with his irons kind of come out a little bit, and just wasn't able to keep the momentum going with the putter on greens that were really, really moving at that point. A lot of pressure on it.
A few other names I want to hit as we wrap up the Valspar talk. Brooks Koepka finishes tied for 18th at 4 under. He talked to the media about this a little bit. He struggled with the driver relative to the field on both Thursday and Saturday.
Saturday was rough. Yeah.
Saturday, I think it was 71st strokes getting out the tee, although he did come back on Sunday and finish 9th in strokes getting out the tee for the day.
Oh, okay.
He led the field.
I need to go look at that.
Yeah, he led the field in strokes gain approach on Friday, and he's now 60th in the FedEx Cup, Smylie. So, this guy looks like he's trending in the right direction to make the playoffs, and keeps playing well. I'd love to hear about your thoughts on his play, but the thing that I think resonated with most was this golf cart incident on Saturday. There was a girl that was struck and pinned by a golf cart, which you were there with that group to witness. I want to read Brooks. He had some comments about it after the round, and then curious, if you can kind of walk us through what happened there. So he said, "I just felt terrible for her. I believe her name is Shay. So from all the reports you've got, she's okay, thankfully. I know she's probably a little scared, and I just felt for her at the time." Explain the situation and how did Brooks both notice what was happening and then decide to go and respond?
He probably saw me sprint over there. It was just really scary, man.
Wow.
I was talking to somebody to my left, and like in the distance, I saw a golf cart hit something, and
oh no!
And then I realized it was probably 5-6 year old girl that got hit. And so I just raced over there, and so did a lot of other people, and immediately tried to get the golf cart off of her. Luckily enough, no tires were on top of her by any means, but that initial hit of the front of the car, man, I think everybody was just so scared. There was kids around. It was just a frightening scene. And medics were immediately called. You just didn't know the severity of the injuries. Our parents were there, other kids around that were really scared. And Brooks was, he came up very soon right after I had gotten there, just to kind of check on what was going on, what was happening. And I think once he realized it was, a child, he sat there for, he probably sat there for 4 or 5 minutes, just kind of talking with the family, talking with the little girl. I believe her name was Shay, is what Brooks said. But I just thought he was very kind and truly a good human deed that he did there, as far as just, he could have walked up to the green and just let the medics take care of everything. But he felt, as a dad, like, you just like, man, if that was my kid, in that situation, I would want to try to help as much as I can. And I think Brooks did a great job.
Man, it's really kind of him. Yeah, it's, when you have kids at home, you think about, what if that was them?
Oh man, I was shook.
She was okay.
I was shaking for 30 minutes because I was just like, man, if that was my kid, it just makes you just like think about your kids in the front yard with cars. And I'm just like, God, like, it can happen that quick. And it wasn't I don't think it was the golf cart driver's fault. I think it was just it could have been a little bit of both, like, she darts, next thing you know, like, maybe he shouldn't have been driving there. It was just one of those like terrible situations that luckily enough that everybody was able to, I think, walk away from.
Yeah, man. And oftentimes, like, the golf cart driver is the one that feels the worst about it, because it is something where a kid darts out and they're doing the best they can. So just glad to hear she's okay. Amazing that both you went and checked on
100%. I'm looking at Brooks here, and just to kind of finish a thought on him as we head into, he's going to play Houston, I believe, next week, which is awesome.
Co-course designer, right?
Co-course designer. But man, he was rolling through, this would have been through 45 holes. And I was like, gosh, he might win this golf tournament. He was at 7 under par through 45 holes of this tournament. Remember, like, he's only got 27 more holes. If he just goes out and shoots 4 under par throughout the rest of the way, he's in a playoff with Fitzpatrick, which I think he would have taken that any day of the week. And he lost the ball strike on the back nine on Saturday. And I even was walking with him a little bit. And he's like, man, I can't find a fairway. Just kind of joking around, just frustrated that he couldn't just make the fix. But looking at his overall stats for the week, and just how we can say, all right, where is he right now with in regards to winning at Houston or contending at the player or the Augusta first major. I'm still think he can win soon. I really believe that he's going to contend in Augusta. I think he's going to contend in Houston, mainly because I believe in the work that he's doing with Mike Kansky on the putter, that it just looks so much better to me. His iron game, I think, is very interesting to get into when you look at the whole season, and seeing that, hey, we're obviously seeing a lot of good shots, but he was third in approach to the green heading into the Valspar Championship. And that's, to me, we already just talked about the stats that Brandel brought up about Augusta. He's like, okay, he's always been a very good chipper, but he's ironing it very good. Great around the greens, the putting's coming back. And if driving distance is the last on the chart, it's like, well, that seems to be kind of, I think we need to be circling Brooks as a potential Masters guy.
Fourth in strokes gained approach the players. Just, if he can figure out and he kind of mentioned that he's working on a couple of different things with the driver, just trying to kind of tweak setup, ball position, things like that. If that's something they can solve.
Oh, he's first right now, approach to the green.
Yeah. How about that?
After Valspar, first. He's gaining 1.08 approach to the green. He's 6 tee to green. Buddy, what do we talk about with the Masters?
He's approach play. That's a big factor. So another guy to circle. And the last one at Valspar is just Jordan Spieth finishes tied for 11, 6 under. He's now 32nd in the FedEx Cup. He's now 59th in the OWGR. Next is playing at Valero. How are we close? I mean, I know there's been some health stuff. There's been some mechanical stuff.
what of his game right now do you feel like is trending in the right direction? Are we close to like a Jordan resurgence?
It was funny. Jacob Bridgman and I both were in the one of those lounges last night. We were both on the same flight to Atlanta. Him and I caught up for about 30 minutes. And I gave him a hard time about the bridge situation in Greenville. And he's like,
did you see the comment on the YouTube?
Yeah. So I was like, dude, Greenville's like main architectural feature is a bridge going from one side to the other. It's like, that's a drawbridge. It was like, but a bridge, Jacob.
Right there in the
like,
name.
It's like, okay, I got my answer moving forward. But he played with Jordan the first 2 days, and he's like, buddy, when he's on right now, it is unbelievable. But when it starts to kind of get a little bit off, it's almost like a second guessing, like where the wind all of a sudden feels like it's doing more than what it should affect him. Like, it's like sometimes it's just a 9-iron and just trust that the wind's there. And I think sometimes he gets a little bit I don't know if it's in his own head, trying to do too much sometimes. So like try to play every shot perfect and have the perfect conditions, but it seems like something gets in his way a little bit. And I don't think I can quite put my finger on it, but from what Jacob said, it's like, all right, he plays just phenomenal golf, like hits all the right shots. He said his putting from like 10 to 30 feet's a joke. His up and downs that he was making, he said it was hectic. Like when you get out of play, and he talked about, he's like, yeah, Friday, I think he had 3 plugged lies, and he was shocked that he was getting plugged lies. He's like, dude, everybody's getting plugged lies. It's everybody here. I think sometimes he just doesn't realize that it's like, it's not just you. It's also everybody here. So I don't know if it's for 72 holes what needs to happen. It's like in those moments of how can you slow everything down and just keep it to where you just, like, he wants it bad, right? Like, he wants to be in all the signature events next year. He wants to be exempt for the majors. He wants to win these events. Like, because you've seen glimpses of these hot starts. Like, he's 400 through 5 to start the event, 300 through 4 on Friday. Sunday he was 300 through 5. Like, those hot starts are what you need to win golf tournaments. And I think a lot of times with players, especially guys that are close, like that, those are the signs that you need to see. So I'm with you. I think he is close, but we've got to find a way to get over the mental hump of putting together 18 holes. It always seems like something happens at a round.
Well, it's so interesting because maybe the more existential question is like, how do you change who you are? I remember when he came on this show for the first time.
Point. Yeah.
and he said the shot I hate the most is stock 9-iron from the middle of the fairway, to like, or even if I have a putt that's dead straight, I try to convince myself that it goes a little left early and it comes back a little right at the end of the hole. And so I think with some of his most signature iconic wins, they are roller coasters, and he is the best at thriving in the roller coaster scenario. But he also said in that same interview, like, I don't necessarily enjoy playing high stress golf. Like, I've been accustomed to living there, but I'd love to play a stress free round of golf and just have everything be simple and straightforward. But it's just with a guy like that, it's almost like if that's the way you're wired, how do you, what sort of framework do you create for yourself to exist in that space in a healthy way? Because you can't change who you are as a human being.
100%. But the reason why I feel good about Jordan and heading into this major season, and especially Augusta, so he gained 4 strokes approach the green on Sunday. It was playing difficult. It was windy. The greens were firm. 4 strokes is a stupid amount of strokes to gain with an iron. So he's obviously
another guy.
He's obviously striping it too. He's got so much success around that place. Just interested to see if we can get, I think for me, the biggest hurdle is, can you clean up everything inside of 5 feet?
Yeah.
It just looks like it's hard working, right? It never looks quite as comfortable as it does from 8 to 15, where it feels like the stroke has so much more flow to it. And those are the momentum killers of a round when you're missing putts that are the ones you should make inside of 4.5, 5 feet.
Well, I'm going to throw 2 more names at you that maybe we should be talking about in relation to the Masters in a few weeks here, because Bryson DeChambeau just won his second straight event on the Live Tour, the inaugural Live South Africa event in a playoff with John Rahm. Bryson now moves up to 24th in the world. Of course, thanks in large part to the OWGR points that Liv is now receiving this year for the top 10 players. Rahm moves up to 28th in the world. And again, there are a lot of differing opinions on each tour, but we are happy to give credit where credit is due. And if you look at the list of winners Liv's had this year, they had Elvis Smylie on his debut. They had the incredible comeback win for Anthony Kim. They had John Rahm to end a long winless drought extending back to 2024. Now they have Bryson back-to-back. And then if you look at this specific event, it looked very similar in terms of the atmosphere, the excitement of that Live Australia event that's been the tour's sort of flagship the past few years. And in fact, after this win, Bryson said, South Africa was unbelievable. I mean, got to be the best Live event we've ever had, which high praise when you're looking at the Australian event that has been, just so exciting the past few years. So we ask some version of the same question every time after a successful event on Live, which is they have found a formula that works. In fact, we talked about this a couple of years ago of do these home games for these teams. And the Southern Guard, the South African team, almost won the team competition. Crushers pipped them at the end. But you can do these home games in golf-starved markets, and it's absolutely works from a local on-site perspective. The greater difficulty is how do you scale that for global television and then sell against it given the time zone issues? But, I mean, you're looking at this week, and I'm just curious what your takeaways were from something that looked to be a well-attended, high-energy golf event.
100%. I think it was a huge success. That's you could see it by the amount of people attending. Another golf-starved place in South Africa, similar to Australia. I mean, you could just run that whole tour through Australia and South Africa and call it a day. I mean, that's how well attended and how big of a successes those events have been. But yeah, you kind of mentioned it, just selling against it with the financial problem of global TV markets versus the domestic networks that obviously like their time slots where they like them. And quite frankly, I don't think the PGA Tour is ready to go in there and spend $100 million to invest in an event that isn't in a proper time slot for them. So I think in a world in which there is a Live Golf Tour that has endless amounts of money, this is not a bad thing for the game of golf. And I am one who obviously a huge PGA Tour supporter, but I can acknowledge that this is also a good thing. It's not the end of the world that a place like South Africa and Australia are getting high level golf. I wish the PGA Tour could go there, but I don't think the players on the PGA Tour necessarily want to go play in Australia and want to go play in South Africa and want to go play all around the world, because there's a ton of events in the States that take up so much of these guys' schedules and places that they enjoy playing and just having families and wanting to get home on the Sunday night. And there's all that goes along with it too. So, a huge success. I thought the funniest video I did see was somebody parachuting down. There's here comes Gary Player coming down, parachuting down to the first tee. And buddy, I was laughing for 30 minutes, picturing Gary Player parachuting out of an airplane.
By the way, wouldn't put it past Gary Player. That guy's doing backflips off of boats. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the thing we love the most on this show is the game of golf. This was good for the game of golf. You want to get all the tour sub politics, this and that. I just even coming away from Brian Rolap's press conference at the Players, where one of the things that he says he wants to do more of is finding time outside of this, that main track, that track one that goes from end of January to end of September, to go to more places globally and kind of grow the game there. And then depending on the economics of how that's structured, of course you have to subsidize and underwrite some of those events and know that you're not going to get this huge return, via selling against a television product that you would for an event that's held domestically that is in primetime time slots and it gets ratings that justify the cost, right? But it sounds like it's something they want to do. But then you also hear him effectively at this stage of the game saying, I'm concerned about this tour, not Live. So that to me says it's less possible that there's some sort of coming together of these two tours as has been rumored in the past, and saying how do we co-sanction those events and move to the fall, and more of we're gonna go to the Australian PGA, or we're gonna do some sort of co-sanctioning thing with events that are already on the DP World Tour, given that partnership. and kind of do it that way. It's good for golf. It's very interesting to see how
it's good for that region, right?
Yes.
It's
right.
very good for it. I agree with how the structure of Live Golf and how many players they play against week in and week out? No, I don't. But I do think 72 holes is not surprising to see more of the top end talent end up at the top of the leaderboard. Not surprised at all by that. But yeah, clearly Bryson seems to be playing nice.
Well, and that's where I want to kind of wrap on Live is effectively Bryson and Rahm about as good as they can be in terms of form heading into Augusta. So I just want you to just power rank those two alongside Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. I was like your big four heading into Augusta. Where would you stack those guys up?
Gosh, if I had to place, if you put Scotty and Rory in a bucket and you put John, Rahm, and Bryson in a bucket, like which one teeter-totters with the
or I'm saying, well, you could do that too, but I'm also saying give me 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of your favorites to win the Masters this year.
Oh my gosh,
that's hard.
Like there's been so much to nitpick about Scotty's game that he's just not quite where he was the last couple years, and throw in that he's probably had a kid. I don't know if it's happened or if it's going to happen. You throw in the birth of a child, which we know how difficult and challenging and amazing all that is. Throw in Rory's back, not playing before Augusta. Now you throw in John Rahm, who had an incredible start to the year on the Live Golf Tour. I thought played well in the majors last year. And then Bryson, who I was moderately impressed with watching him at the Ryder Cup. I wasn't overly impressed, but clearly playing some good golf this year and and even the one that Anthony Kim, he was in that final group with him. So he's clearly playing some solid golf at a place that should suit his game, or I think he's figuring out Augusta a little bit more. Where do I sit with those two over these two? Kind of like these two over here a little bit more right now. Is that bad? Am I wrong?
No, I mean, because, and I think anytime I doubt Scotty Scheffler, I immediately get proved wrong. So there's that. and I expect to again, but all the things you said are true. There are things that he has characteristically for his entire career done really well. And he's not doing that as well this year for whatever reason. It could be a swing thing, as we've talked about in past shows. It could be, now with the child arriving, not knowing the timing of that. Obviously he's a wonderful father and a good human being, so he's going to devote lots of time there to supporting Meredith and that whole situation. And happy for him there. And shoot, we've even heard in past years of like traveling with his family, like playing amazing golf while being with his family the entire time and doing all the dad duties. I mean, it's so he can do it, he can handle it. And then on the Rory front too, it's I love everything about his game and the way he was playing to start the year, but you just don't know where he's at with back health. And
it's just form too.
Yeah, it's form too. But I think, and you're looking at Bryson Rahm. So that's, it's a tough power rank. I think I'm leaning a little bit towards the Live crowd as it currently stands, but
me too. Yeah.
Happy to be, proven wrong by Scotty and Rory, and they likely will.
Yeah. The group of PGA Tour players you think of, it's like Fitzy and think of Cam Young, like those are some of the two that you start talking of from the PGA Tour. Guys like Chris Goddard, Jake Knapp, Ludwig. But I think I'd be surprised if John Rahm and Bryson don't have good Masters.
Yeah, there you go. That's all I got for the show this week, Smylie.
Beautiful.
I guess we got to tease though a little bit. We got some fun stuff coming up this week. We have a conversation with Akshay Bhatia about just his start to the year as win at API, kind of what he learned with the holding that 54-hole lead, the AT&T, and the stuff he's been working on with this game. And then also a really cool, we've had Brett McCabe, who's a sports psychologist, on the show before and gave us some great stuff you can apply to your own game. And then more of the context of this conversation was the work he's done with Cameron Young and Chris Goddard. And so two really cool sections is talking about what they're thinking about going to these final rounds, the way, in some ways for Cam getting over a hump and really kind of believing in his talent. I thought that was fantastic. So we have both those dropping this week. And of course we have a 9 a.m. Wednesday Golf Channel premiere
And then let me see. I think the re-air schedule again. This is we have a 7 p.m. and a 10 p.m. re-air.
Amazing.
On Wednesday night East. And those are honestly, that's my favorite part of those Golf Channel shows, is getting the late night bar text from people like, you're on the TV here and whatever bar I'm in. So look forward to all that this week.
Yeah, totally. It's a good one. It's fun to catch up with guys who just won on the PGA Tour, and I could listen to him talk all day.
Oh, so good. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you watching and listening. As always, look forward to those two dropping this week. And we'll be back here to recap all the action at Houston beginning of next week. Talk to you then.
See you.
We'll see you next week on the Golf Channel. This has been The Smylie Show.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
All of our lovely fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the